Judge Edward Chen laughs in court as Elon Musk's defense unravels over his 2018 Tesla tweet. A heated clash erupts, and Musk's next move stuns all. The courtroom in San Francisco buzzed with tension on a crisp morning in May 2025, the air thick with anticipation. Reporters crammed into the wooden benches, their pens poised, cameras trained on the center of the room where Elon Musk, the enigmatic billionaire, stood at the defendant's table. His sharp gray suit and steely gaze contrasted with the wood-paneled solemnity of the federal courthouse. Across from him, Judge Edward Chen leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable but his eyes glinting with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The case revolved around Musk's infamous 2018 tweet, where he claimed he had funding secured to take Tesla private at $420 per share. The tweet had sent Tesla's stock into a frenzy, costing investors billions, when the deal never materialized. The Securities and Exchange Commission had charged Musk with securities fraud, and now, years later, the case had reached a boiling point. Musk's legal team, led by the polished attorney Alexandra Voss, had spent weeks arguing that the tweet was a mere expression of optimism, not a deliberate attempt to mislead. Voss stood tall, her voice steady as she addressed the court. "Your Honor, Mr. Musk's tweet was an impulsive but honest reflection of his belief in Tesla's future. He had discussions with potential investors, and his intent was to share his vision, not to manipulate markets." She gestured toward Musk, who nodded slightly, his jaw tight. The courtroom was silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the occasional cough from the gallery. Voss's argument leaned heavily on Musk's reputation as a visionary, a man whose bold ideas often outpaced conventional norms. She cited his track record: SpaceX's reusable rockets, Neuralink's brain-computer interfaces, and Tesla's dominance in electric vehicles. "This is a man who builds the future, not one who schemes in shadows," she concluded, her tone defiant. Judge Chen, however, was unmoved. His reputation for precision and intolerance for theatrics preceded him, and today he was in no mood for grand narratives. He leaned forward, his glasses catching the light as he fixed his gaze on Voss. "Ms. Voss, are you suggesting that a CEO of a publicly traded company can tweet whatever he pleases, regardless of the consequences, as long as he calls it optimism?" His voice was calm but laced with an edge that made the room feel smaller. Voss opened her mouth to respond, but Chen raised a hand. "Let's be clear. This tweet caused chaos. Investors lost billions. Your client's vision doesn't excuse reckless disregard for the truth." The judge's words landed like a gavel, and a murmur rippled through the crowd. Musk shifted in his seat, his fingers drumming lightly on the table, betraying a flicker of unease. Then came the moment that would dominate headlines. Chen turned his attention directly to Musk, his tone sharp. "Mr. Musk, you've built an empire on defying expectations, but this court operates on evidence, not charisma. Your argument that this was just a tweet, a fleeting thought, is, frankly, absurd." A low chuckle escaped the judge, not one of amusement but of disbelief, and it echoed through the room like a thunderclap. The gallery gasped, reporters scribbling furiously. Musk's face tightened, his eyes narrowing as he locked gazes with Chen. The laughter wasn't just a rebuke, it was a challenge, a public dismantling of Musk's carefully crafted image. Voss tried to interject, but Musk raised a hand to silence her, his expression unreadable but intense. The room held its breath, waiting for his response. Musk stood, his movements deliberate, and addressed the court himself. "Your Honor, I respect this court, but I don't hide behind lawyers or excuses. That tweet was a mistake, but it wasn't fraud. I believed in the deal, and I believe in Tesla." His voice was steady, but there was a fire in it, a defiance, that matched Chen's skepticism. "If this court wants accountability, I'll give it, but not in the way you expect." The words hung in the air, cryptic and bold. Judge Chen raised an eyebrow, leaning back as if intrigued despite himself. The reporters leaned forward, sensing a shift. What was Musk planning? His history of unpredictable moves, from buying Twitter to colonizing Mars, suggested this was no empty promise. The courtroom crackled with the weight of what might come. Next, as Musk's eyes burned with a resolve that promised to upend everything. The courtroom seemed to pulse with the aftershock of Elon Musk's words, his cryptic promise lingering like a storm cloud. Judge Edward Chen's eyebrow remained arched, his fingers steepled as he studied Musk with the intensity of a chess master facing an unpredictable opponent. The reporter's pen scratched furiously, capturing every nuance of the moment. Musk stood tall, his gaze unwavering, the fire in his eyes daring the judge to press him further. The tension was palpable, a silent duel between two men accustomed to wielding power in their respective arenas. Chen's earlier laughter had set the stage, but Musk's bold declaration had shifted the spotlight, and now the room waited to see how far he would push. Chen broke the silence, his voice measured, but cutting. "Mr. Musk, this court isn't a stage for theatrics or grand gestures. You've admitted the tweet was a mistake. That's a start. But accountability isn't a promise. It's action backed by evidence. What exactly are you proposing?" The judge's tone carried a challenge, a demand for substance over spectacle. The gallery stirred, sensing the confrontation escalating. Alexandra Voss, Musk's attorney, shifted uneasily, her hand twitching as if to signal her client to sit down. But Musk ignored her. He stepped forward closer to the podium, his presence filling the room. "Your Honor, I don't play games with words. You want accountability? I'll give you something no one's ever seen in a courtroom." Musk's voice grew firmer, each word deliberate. "I'm prepared to put $3 billion into a restitution fund for every investor who lost money because of that tweet. Not a penny less, paid out immediately." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom, reporters exchanging stunned glances. $3 billion. The number was staggering, even for a man of Musk's wealth. He wasn't done. "And I'll establish a $2 billion trust for the SEC to oversee, ensuring no one questions Tesla's integrity again." The gallery erupted in murmurs, the sound swelling until Chen banged his gavel, restoring order. The judge's face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of surprise. Musk pressed on, his voice rising with conviction. "I'll also surrender my Tesla stock options, every single one, to the factory workers who build our cars. They're the heart of Tesla, not me." The proposal was audacious, a move that defied every legal playbook. Voss's face paled, her lips parting in silent protest, but Musk's focus was on Chen. The judge leaned forward, his voice low and deliberate. "Mr. Musk, you're suggesting you can buy your way out of a fraud charge with a spectacle of generosity. This court doesn't operate on billionaire whims. Why should I believe this isn't just another stunt?" The question was a blade, slicing through Musk's bravado. The room held its breath, waiting for his response. Musk's jaw tightened, and for a moment, a shadow of vulnerability crossed his face, a rare glimpse of the man behind the myth. "I'm not buying anything," Musk shot back, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I'm fixing what I broke. Those investors trusted me. Those workers built my dream. If I've let them down, I'll make it right. Not with apologies, but with action." His words carried a raw sincerity that silenced the room. Even Voss seemed caught off guard, her expression softening. The reporters scribbled frantically, aware they were witnessing history. Chen, however, remained a wall of skepticism. "Admirable sentiments, Mr. Musk. But this court deals in law, not sentiment. Your proposal raises questions of precedent, of fairness. Why should wealth excuse you from a formal finding of fraud?" The question hung heavy, and Musk's eyes narrowed, his mind clearly racing. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. "Because, Your Honor, I'm not asking for a free pass. I'm asking for a chance to prove justice doesn't always look like punishment." The words landed with the weight of a manifesto, and the courtroom buzzed with renewed energy. Chen's expression shifted, a flicker of intrigue breaking through his stoicism. He adjusted his glasses, studying Musk as if seeing him for the first time. The reporters leaned forward, sensing the tide turning. What would Chen do with this unprecedented offer? The answer would redefine the case, and Musk's next move would either cement his legacy or unravel it entirely. The courtroom held its breath, the weight of Elon Musk's words settling like dust after an explosion. His plea for a new kind of justice had shifted the air, and Judge Edward Chen's piercing gaze remained fixed on him, searching for cracks in the billionaire's resolve. The flicker of intrigue in Chen's eyes was fleeting, replaced by a steely determination that signaled he was far from swayed. The reporters, their notebooks nearly overflowing, leaned forward, sensing the confrontation teetering on a razor's edge. Musk stood firm, his hands clasped behind his back, but the intensity in his stare betrayed the stakes. This wasn't just about a tweet anymore. It was a clash of principles, of wealth against law, vision against order. Chen's voice cut through the silence, deliberate and cold. "Mr. Musk, you speak of justice, but what you're proposing sounds like a transaction. $3 billion for investors, $2 billion for the SEC, stock options for workers. You're dressing it up as accountability, but it's a settlement with a bow on it. Why should this court entertain a deal that lets you sidestep a fraud conviction?" The judge's words were a gauntlet thrown down, each syllable challenging Musk's sincerity. The gallery stirred, murmurs rippling as the SEC's lead counsel, Daniel Harper, nodded in agreement, his expression smug. Harper rose, seizing the moment. "Your Honor, the defendant's offer, while generous, is a distraction. Securities fraud demands consequences, not charity. Accepting this would undermine the law's integrity." Musk's attorney, Alexandra Voss, shot to her feet, her voice sharp. "Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Harper's implying my client's proposal lacks merit without addressing its impact. This isn't charity, it's restitution, unprecedented in scale." Chen raised a hand, silencing her, his eyes never leaving. "Musk." "Ms. Voss, I'll hear from your client." "Mr. Musk, Mr. Harper raises a valid point. Your wealth allows you to make offers others can't. How does that not erode the principle of equal justice?" The question was a trap, and the room felt it. Musk's jaw clenched, his mind visibly racing as he absorbed the challenge. The reporters, pens hovered, ready to capture his response. Musk stepped closer to the podium, his voice low but resonant. "Your Honor, I'm not here to exploit my wealth. I'm here to use it to make things right. Equal justice doesn't mean equal punishment. It means equal outcomes. Investors get their money back. The SEC gets a trust to protect markets. Workers get a stake in Tesla's future. If that's not justice, tell me what is." His words carried a raw edge, a mix of defiance and conviction that silenced Harper's smugness. The gallery buzzed, some nodding, others whispering in disbelief. Chen, however, remained a fortress, his expression unyielding. "You're redefining justice. To suit your narrative, Mr. Musk. The law doesn't bend for good intentions no matter how much money backs them." The rebuke stung, and Musk's eyes flashed with frustration. He leaned forward, his voice rising. "Then let's talk about the law. The SEC wants a scalp, not a solution. They want to brand me a fraud, to make headlines, not to help anyone. My offer does more for investors than a conviction ever could." The accusation was bold, almost reckless, and Harper's face reddened as he shot up again. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. The defendant's attacking the SEC's motives to deflect from his guilt." The courtroom erupted, voices overlapping until Chen's gavel crashed down, the sound sharp and final. "Enough!" Chen's voice, boomed, his patience fraying. "Mr. Musk, you're treading a fine line. Accusing the SEC won't help your case. Your proposal is bold, I'll grant you that. But it's unorthodox, and this court doesn't operate on untested experiments." Musk didn't flinch. His gaze locked on Chen's. "With respect, Your Honor, every major change in history started as an experiment. I'm not asking you to break the law. I'm asking you to see it through a new lens." The words were a gamble, a direct appeal to Chen's intellect and legacy. The judge's lips twitched, not in amusement but in contemplation, as if weighing the man before him against the principles he upheld. The reporters scribbled furiously, aware they were witnessing a pivotal moment. Voss, sensing an opening, leaned toward Musk, whispering urgently, but he waved her off, his focus unwavering. The room pulsed with anticipation, every eye on Chen. Would he entertain Musk's audacious vision, or would he slam the door shut? The answer loomed, and Musk's fate hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of triumph or ruin. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. A taut thread stretched to its limit as Judge Edward Chen's gaze bore into Elon Musk. The billionaire's bold appeal for a new lens on justice lingered, a challenge that seemed to vibrate in the air. Chen's lips, momentarily twitched, now settled into a hard line, his eyes narrowing as he processed Musk's words. The reporters, their pens poised, felt the weight of the moment, each second stretching into eternity. Alexandra Voss, Musk's attorney, hovered at his side, her whispered warnings ignored as Musk stood resolute, his defiance a beacon in the storm of scrutiny. The gallery held its collective breath, sensing the confrontation hurtling toward a breaking point. Chen's next words would either ignite Musk's vision or snuff it out entirely. Chen leaned forward, his voice low and deliberate, each word a measured strike. "Mr. Musk, you speak of history and experiments, but this court isn't a laboratory for your ideas. The law demands accountability, not innovation. Your proposal, while unprecedented, risks setting a precedent where wealth can rewrite consequences. Convince me this isn't just a gilded escape." The challenge was razor-sharp, stripping away Musk's rhetoric to expose the core of his intent. The SEC's counsel, Daniel Harper, smirked faintly, sensing an advantage, while Voss's face tightened, her eyes darting between her client and the judge. The room pulsed with tension, every onlooker aware that Musk's response could tip the scales. Musk's expression hardened, but his voice remained steady, carrying a quiet intensity. "Your Honor, I'm not escaping anything. A conviction brands me a fraud and does nothing for those who lost money. My proposal compensates every investor, strengthens market oversight, and rewards the workers who drive Tesla's value. If that's not accountability, then the law's lost sight of its purpose." His words were a direct counterpunch, reframing Chen's challenge as a failure of the system itself. The gallery murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads, in disbelief. Harper leapt to his feet, his voice sharp. "Your Honor, this is manipulation. The defendant's trying to guilt the court into accepting his terms by questioning the law's purpose. It's a disgrace." The outburst drew gasps, and Chen's gavel cracked, silencing the room. "Mr. Harper, sit down," Chen snapped, his patience thinning. His eyes returned to Musk, probing. "You're asking this court to trust your intentions, Mr. Musk, but trust is earned, not bought. Your history of impulsive actions, tweets, acquisitions, public spats, doesn't inspire confidence. Why should I believe this isn't another stunt?" The question was a gut punch, dragging Musk's past into the spotlight. The reporters scribbled furiously, sensing blood in the water. Voss tried to interject, but Musk raised a hand, his focus unwavering. He stepped closer to the podium, his voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried to every corner. "Because, Your Honor, I've built my life on solving problems others won't touch. This isn't a stunt, it's a solution. If you want proof, let me show you I mean it." The room erupted in whispers, the audacity of Musk's confidence electrifying the atmosphere. Chen's expression remained unreadable, but his fingers tapped lightly on the bench, a rare sign of contemplation. "Show me," he said, his voice flat but laced with curiosity. "But understand, Mr. Musk, this court doesn't bend to charisma or promises. Your proposal must withstand scrutiny, not just in scale but in principle. The SEC has a say, and so do the investors you claim to champion." The judge's words were a lifeline and a warning, offering Musk a chance but tethering it to reality. Harper's face darkened, his earlier smugness replaced by unease, as he realized Chen was considering the impossible. Musk nodded, a spark of determination in his eyes. "I'll work with the SEC, the investors, anyone who needs convincing. But I'm not here to delay or dodge. I'm ready to act now." His voice carried a conviction that silenced the room, even Harper hesitating to respond. Voss, sensing a shift, leaned toward Musk, her whisper urgent but inaudible. Chen adjusted his glasses, his gaze sweeping the courtroom as if weighing the chaos Musk had unleashed. The reporters leaned forward, their anticipation palpable. The judge's next move would decide whether Musk's gamble paid off or collapsed under its own weight. As the tension coiled tighter, one question burned. Could Musk's vision reshape justice, or would it unravel in the face of Chen's unrelenting scrutiny? The courtroom vibrated with the weight of Elon Musk's pledge, his vow to act immediately hanging like a spark in dry grass. Judge Edward Chen's gaze, sharp and unyielding, swept across the room, lingering on Musk, whose determined nod seemed to challenge the very foundations of the law. The reporters, their notebooks nearly spent, held their breath, pens poised for the verdict that would define this historic clash. Alexandra Voss, her face a mask of cautious hope, whispered one last plea to Musk. But he stood resolute, his eyes locked on Chen. Daniel Harper, the SEC's counsel, shifted uncomfortably, his earlier confidence shaken by Musk's unrelenting conviction. The tension was a living thing, coiling tighter as Chen's silence stretched, his fingers adjusting his glasses with deliberate care. The question that burned in every mind, could Musk's radical vision reshape justice, was about to be answered. Chen's voice, when it came, was steady, cutting through the charged air. "Mr. Musk, your proposal is bold, perhaps revolutionary, but it treads a dangerous line. The law exists to ensure accountability, not to be swayed by wealth or charisma. Yet, you've offered a path that could, in theory, serve those harmed more directly than a conviction." The words sent a ripple through the gallery, reporters exchanging stunned glances. Harper's face tightened, his hand twitching as if to object, but Chen pressed on. "However, this court cannot simply accept your terms without scrutiny. The CC must agree, and the investors must have a voice. Convince me this can work without undermining the law's integrity." The challenge was a final test, and the room leaned forward, sensing the climax of this extraordinary battle. Musk stepped forward, his voice firm but measured. "Your Honor, I've already directed my team to draft agreements with the SEC and investor representatives. The restitution fund will be transparent, audited independently, and dispersed within 90 days. The trust for the SEC will be locked for a decade, ensuring long-term oversight. My stock options are already being transferred to Tesla's workers. Through a verified trust. This isn't a promise. It's happening." His words were a thunderclap, their specificity disarming even Harper, who sat back, speechless. Voss's eyes widened, a flicker of pride breaking through her restraint. The gallery buzzed, the audacity of Musk's execution sinking in. He wasn't just proposing, he was acting, forcing the court to catch up. Harper rose, his voice strained. "Your Honor, this is a stunt. The SEC cannot be coerced into a deal that lets the defendant evade a fraud finding. The law demands consequences, not compromises." His desperation was palpable, But Chen's raised hand silenced him. "Mr. Harper, the SEC will have its say, but I'm inclined to explore a solution that prioritizes victims over symbolism." The judge's words were a blow, and Harper sank into his seat, defeated. Chen turned to Musk, his tone softer but still probing. "Mr. Musk, your actions suggest sincerity, but the law isn't a negotiation. If I accept this, it's because it serves justice, not because you've outmaneuvered the system. Understood?" Musk nodded, a rare humility in his posture. "Understood, Your Honor." After a tense pause, Chen spoke, his voice resolute. "This court will accept Mr. Musk's proposal, contingent on SEC approval and investor consent, to be finalized within 30 days. No formal finding of fraud will be entered, provided the terms are met." The gavel fell, and the courtroom erupted, reporters scrambling to capture the moment. Musk exhaled, his shoulders relaxing for the first time, while Voss clasped his arm, her relief evident. Harper stared at the floor, the SEC's defeat written in his slumped posture. The gallery buzzed with debate. Some hailed Musk's triumph as genius, others whispered of a system bent by wealth. As the crowd dispersed, the implications rippled outward. Headlines screamed of Musk's courtroom coup, sparking fierce debate. Some saw his solution as a masterstroke, compensating victims and empowering workers while avoiding legal quagmire. Others warned of a troubling precedent, where billionaires could sidestep consequences with cash. The case became a lightning rod, fueling calls for legislative reform to ensure the law applied equally, regardless of wealth. Musk, stepping into the San Francisco sunlight, faced a throng of cameras but said nothing, his silence louder than any tweet. In the end, he had reshaped the narrative, not just of his legacy but of justice itself, leaving the world to grapple with what it meant when vision met power in the crucible of the law.